Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. A'udhu billah shaitan ar-Rajim, may God protect us from the cursed one and unnecessary ignorance. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, all praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Rabbi Ghfirli, my Lord, forgive me for all the sins that I am conscious and unconscious of. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. May God guide us to the direct path. And this lecture. So I don't know what's happening tonight, guys, but I feel capable of giving another lecture. The ideas are very fascinating tonight. You know, nothing gets as serious and intense as when a podcaster takes off his jacket. Like that's that's like Goku going Super Saiyan, you know. All right, folks, I'm back to another lecture, I guess. So this is a back-to-back lecture, the second one. So guys, I wanted to zoom in on this idea that occurred to me. And I feel I've had a sort of breakthrough moment, and that's what motivated and gave me the energy to give another lecture. I think this is going to be a very fascinating, this might be like a very incredible lecture, actually. So ladies and gentlemen, it occurred to me moments ago before I decided to give this lecture that, wait a minute, could it be that I can translate anything into anything else? That means, like, we look at a tree, a physicist looks at a tree, and it's the intelligence of that being translates it as particles. So anything can be translated into anything else, and before I'm claiming this as a sort of, I'm like, wait a minute, is this what's actually going on? I'm like, okay, let's first wonder about a probability of it. That means, let's test to see if we can translate anything into anything else. Which means that we're an intelligence that can, in some sense, see one pattern and utilize that pattern and shift other patterns or bring forth new patterns. So when I say you're, have you noticed you can translate anything into anything else? I'm like, yo, the mathematicians translated reality into numbers. Every person, in the 7,000 languages that there are, it's like every person is like translating reality in accordance to the laws of that linguistic system. So it is very fascinating to me that if this statement is true, which to me I think it's true, because I can translate anything into anything else. It's not difficult. You just have to see which one of them is animated first. So if I'll give you an example. Like, can I translate a tree into a human? Like, yeah, I've seen, like, wooden statues. Can I translate like, solar panels in the design, in the angles of leaves? Like, some kid did that and won a science fair project. What I'm saying is that you can translate anything to anything else, and this has to make you like, get you at least a little concerned about what does this imply about the nature of the world we're in. If you can translate anything, that means if the physicist can look at something and translate it into particles, see that thing made of particles, and a spiritual person can, like, go hug a tree feeling there's a soul in there. What is going on is this ability to, in some sense, see. It's like, because we're an intelligence beyond design, we can see any design into any other design. And this is very something, I don't know, for me, I don't want to say it's eerie, but it's kind of like, whoa, what does this really mean? Does this mean that nothing has a value, or everything's value can be translated into each other? What does that mean? That means, sorry guys, I'll do this from the beginning. That means, see guys, this is the conceptual checkpoint. Pretty much, I'm this human being who's like, whoa, can we translate anything into anything else? I personally find it to be true now in cyberspace, in front of, time, history, and the creator itself. I'm like, all right, let's see what we can do here. So, what does it imply, right? That means if anything can be translated to anything else, it means nothing has value. It can mean that. Do you know what I mean? I'll give you an example. If anybody, imagine a species could change its genetics by choice, like we were a shape shifting DNA kind of vertical moving species. All right, guys. Hopefully you can hear me well. Different positioning of the microphone in me. Let me know if it's not audible, but it should be. There we go. Should be okay. So, if we can translate anything into anything else, I think this can lead to proving that reality is a simulation. I firmly believe reality is a simulation. To me, a simulation is defined as something that has a beginning and an end, and that which is not simulated, in some sense, is not something that can, begin and end. Do you know? So for me, the original duality is really the duality of that there's an original state and there's a simulated state. Now, sure, I could treat this simulated biological state as a noun, but to be honest, it's a verb. Reality is an unknown event, and in some sense, it's like a verb, right? And there's known and unknown variables to reality. So not only can you see it as a noun or a verb, you can see it as known, unknown, and you can, in some sense, I guess, present your own access upon it. I don't know, guys. This might be better. So we don't really. There's so much we don't know, but there is stuff that we know as a species. I'm a human being that honestly has become a little bored of existence. Not in like some existential crisis way, in the sense of it's looping. I say that, I'm 33 laps around the sun. It's like around 12,000 days. So I've had 12,000 days where I've woken up, yo, a new day. Yo, a new day. Yo, it's the 12,000th time I'm saying it's a new day. Okay, so at some point it makes you wonder about where you are really as a conscious being, and to truly wonder about the depths and your depths and dimensions. I think it's really about how a human being acknowledges what's there. So for me, in front of my eyes, I'm an objective physical being. In front of my eyes, I'm an objective physical being. I'm in a physical public simulated server. Okay. I don't want to say that we all are like candles, to be honest. Like, and it's to me at least, it's like I've entered this world room for some time and I will leave it. And I feel other human beings have the same vibe, same feeling. And so it's all about what can we really do here, and in the process of wanting to, we're right now living at a very incredible era. Whether we like it or not, we're witnessing the ascension of the human awareness beyond nationalism and into towards speciesism, right? That means it's like we're discovering that how we are all human beings has a value that surpasses what these humans individually identify as. And its value is very honorable. It's the continuity of our greatness. Like it's kind of bizarre to wonder about. There was a time on this planet where to make a fire was the most advanced technology. Like, do you believe that? Or even procreation was the most advanced technology? I mean, technically, it still is. All right. To continue, the fact that it just occurred to me, and I'm 1 in 8 billion human beings, that anything can be translated into anything else. It is neither just a deep implication of the subjective nature of man, that really what the human being has been doing is that he has created his own language in the middle of an unknown event. Human beings are very complex creatures. They're having an incredible relationship on a symbolic level with their world. Like, and do you know what that means? That means when you go somewhere, you have names for objects. Do you know? It's like you don't just treat a room as just like, yo, man, look at all these atoms in the room. You're like, no, look at all this stuff in this room. Like, that's a phone, that's a lamp, that's the wall. Do you know what I mean? So we, in some sense, have very sophisticated compartmentalization of reality. You're looking at pretty much the progress of a species from being a savage entity to constantly recoordinating itself, civilizing itself, adapting. And what was the point of its adaptation? To reach the stage of communication. Now, the communication era has been brewing for a long time, and now we've, to be honest, after the Industrial Revolution, something happened in the world that it kind of like we tapped into, like it's like the world went somewhere else, you know. So honestly, if anything can be translated to anything else, it means that meaning is not just happening in one way, it's multi-directional. Do you know that means I could suddenly look at, I'll give you an example. You could tell me, like, visualize a tree, and I can visualize an actual tree. At the same time, I could visualize a drawing of a tree. I could visualize a 3D hologram of a tree. Do you know what I mean? My mind can translate one thing into different variations of other things, and even if not directly, indirectly 100%. Okay, so what we're really working with as a human being here is a sort of intelligence that can translate anything into anything else. Do you know what that means? That means you could have a pattern, and this doesn't. I mean, sure, somebody can make the argument like, "Yo, Mr. Within, well, that's not possible because how can a young child translate all the brain patterns it hasn't developed yet?" Do you know what I mean? And I'll tell you, this is the strange thing about life. I think there's a specific technical term for it that I read. I don't remember exactly. I don't know if it's isotopic. I don't know. I don't know what the exact term is, okay? But it's this idea that the world itself, the elements in the world are also aware of the completeness of the world. How would I say it? It's like songs like heavy. But I'll say it like this. It's like understanding the dimensional freedom. It's to understand that if there was a system at this admin to this reality, it gave system privileges to these users in the existential system. And there's these 8 billion human users right now, and they got to figure out in regards to the outer realms and reality, what great values shall we recalibrate and in some sense build an advanced civilization through. For me, the future just means life is way bigger than you can imagine. And the past is like, yo, man, at least you organized your imagination, you know, and the present is like, okay, you know, to me, being in the present just means that you're in someone else's imagination. You're in a world that you did not create, you did not design. The world is too big for us to index it, you know. So at some point you come into terms and contact with your own limitations as an entity, and then you wonder, okay, the limitations can be translated as a sort of design. So the nature of reality is the nature of man's mind. It's the nature of how we're having a relationship as an awareness to reality which formulates consciousness. And so the question is, all right, how does this awareness relate to form? The nature of man is one of just confronting the unknown and being led by values that it finds to be true. When I'm saying, have you noticed we can translate anything into anything else? This was one of the most fascinating moments that had occurred to me, because I had organized like you see right now, if you ask me like what's going on Earth, I have answers in accordance to different ways I've perceived the solution to that or the response to that. And every person, of course, has a different mind, different DNA, different intelligence, different kind of access. But for me personally, it's through cinematically. And what that means is behind my eyes, the world began moving faster, and eventually the fastest way that ideas could move or that they became films. And eventually, the faster these films went forward, it was as if, like, what can you do when you're moving too fast to see yourself? Some aspect of you has to zoom out. And so, as a human being, my consciousness at some point zoomed out of itself to the degree that it began questioning, all right, what is the value system that these human beings are motivated by, and what is really separating us from other species? The answer is really not only because we're aware of that we're aware, and we're aware of our mortality, but it's kind of like we have access to a superior server. You know, like human beings, every human being alive right now has access to a private life they're living that nobody else can ever see, and they can try to communicate, but it can never be the totality of it. So everybody behind their eyes is an awareness to a much larger world than their sort of small self archetype. So in front of your eyes, you're a physical self in a public existential server, objective server. Behind your eyes, you're in an experiential, subjective, private server. Now, the arguments about telepathy and all that, that's a different lecture. But that is a branch. And so where I'm going with this is to simply suggest that our awareness to reality kind of positions the awareness superior to the stuff that's changing. When I wonder about, from the beginning of my life till now, what has changed, my body has changed, the ideas I've had have changed, the depth of what life has changed, but the awareness to how they have changed has not, the awareness to how I'm aware they have changed has not changed. And so we're reaching that point where we're reaching a deeper evolutionary and even internally revolutionary comprehension of the human being, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the year 2025 and beyond. We march into the future as a species, wise with the realization that we do not avoid the higher ideals, we do not cover our eyes when the world has given us eyes, and so we in some sense become fascinated with the geometry of a world that in some sense has a heartbeat, that the whole cosmos in some sense is here with you now. So dear humanity, in some sense, once you truly open your eyes, you will realize the fascinating possibility that perhaps if you see a dark reality, you know, the brightest lights are usually sent there. The nature of man is to clarify his position in the cosmos, and when he goes to do so, if he's honest, he realizes he's limited. He realizes that he is living in his own world room within a world room, right? And so once you notice and can discriminate between your inner realms and outer realms, in the same way you can discriminate, like your right hand's movement is different from your left hand's, in the same way you should be able to discriminate with how your whole body's physical movement is different from how you can close your eyes and still move. You can close your eyes and still see. You can close your eyes and feel realities that haven't even emerged yet. Do you know, and once the species conquers its fear, guess what? From underneath your feet emerges the advanced civilization, as if all that the future expected from you was for you to notice where you're going. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a species that is in some sort of strange ideological masquerade party, you know, in some hilarious costume games. Every person is dressing themselves up behind their eyes and in front of their eyes. And it's very fascinating because this is what we have now. And if you wonder about like pretty much the idea of what does it mean to be a strategist, it's pretty much whatever consciousness is there is like, all right, what do we have to work with? And sometimes, when I want to calm myself down, when life becomes really intense, I'm like, okay, let's imagine we're 8 billion beings stranded on an island, okay, on a galactic island. Now, what do we do? And it's like use everything at your disposal, not in the sense of ignorance, but to realize what options there are. That means it's like the whole approach of hunting and gathering is now infused in the nature of man, in the nature of this species, where we gather information and we hunt for new purpose. For me, I ask myself, what kind of self do I deserve? And then I ask myself, all right, what kind of species does this, like, I'll give you I'll say that again. I ask myself, what version of me does the world truly deserve? Or I should say differently. Yeah, or I'll say it this way. What version of me does the world deserve? What version of the species, or I can't say it this way. I'll say it in this way, that I think that moment will arrive where you will notice that every person that you've liked, disliked, felt anything about, we all at some point leave the world room. We just leave it at some point. And the whole value of life is then, wait a minute, I'm somewhere in the world. You're telling me I'm in a world right now, and I'm here for some time, and then I leave, and then I'm like, what was the point of being in this room? And I'll tell you this. The point of being in this world is to update the system you were born in. It's not hard to believe that life has a life to it. That there are moments like how a self is clueless, a species is clueless. For me, my concern is, what is the most advanced thing that can happen while I'm here before I'm no longer here? That's my whole, like, if they're like, yo man, what are you doing being alive? I'll be like, to be honest, it's like I'm bored with the repetition of reality, but in some sense it fascinates me how we all look like each other. We're all the same member of the species, and it's as if we're too occupied by trying to, you know what they say, like sometimes theology has an incredible point to it. Theology is very important because it is the study of truth and ignorance. What is the greatest expression of all conscious agents in the realm? How advanced can our world truly be? And isn't it the case that we have to go as far as we can so the future generations go further? And to go further doesn't mean a technocracy. To go further means, when I say advancement, you pretty much begin putting the word advance in front of every word you know. And you realize, wait a minute, this whole time there was an advanced probability to myself. This whole time there was an advanced probability to my species. This whole time there was an advanced probability to my world. This whole time there was an advanced probability of my relationship with the most advanced probability, with the most advanced. Not even a probability, the most advanced. On some level, you're being here wondering about what's simulated, what's real, what's original, and at the same time, you're being here to kind of work with the design, and when I was saying in a previous talk, I was talking about how life is a video game. The 4 levels to this video game is level 1 is an awareness to yourself, level 2 is an awareness to your species, level 3 is an awareness to your world, level 4 is an awareness to the system admin. And what the system admin means, that the governing agency of existence is beyond existence. That means every Muslim person you have ever seen and you've wondered, what do they perceive God? It is such a majestic position, beyond even fathomable positioning, that it's just you realizing that if you've ever wondered about what is at the top, what is the highest ideal, you will notice that so much of life is not in your control. And yet you're still here. And yet we all go forth. And there is consciousness as in some sense a certain access to life, working with known variables and forming logic. But the moment new unknown variables come, the logic becomes incomplete to itself, as a sort of endless update. But in reality, it's like you wonder and you're like, yo man, just like how I am like a physical being, I have a physical value, just like how I have, let's say, I'll say that again, just like how I have an objective value, a physical value, just like how I have a subjective, value, psychological value. In the same way, there is like my awareness that is aware of it, all the values has a value. And so what reality is, it's something that's happening together, yet at the same time separately. The system is so geniusly built, like how can you not? Like the moment we consider reality as it had a designer, it's like considering a beginning and an end to reality, which means it's simulated. And if somebody says, wait a minute, can an immortal being know itself? I'll say it this way, anything that has a beginning was caused, meaning there had to be an earlier cause. Simulation means we're the effect. So right now, I'm saying the lower power is the effect of the higher power. And in the same way, human beings are capable, like a politician gives a speech, and a politician can give a speech to a bunch of ants. Do you know what I mean? The ants can. And there's such a difference in the ants being able to understand the politician. In the same way, it's not too far-fetched of an idea to consider we could be ants. And so what is the relationship of man with intelligence that is lower than him and higher than him? And if you wonder about what is the highest intelligence to communicate to, it is the system admin, nothing else. So in some sense, why did they say Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the final messenger? Because he pointed to the finale, the finale of human consciousness, in recognizing that at the edge of reality, it had an origin. What I mean by this is that, yes, the original created the simulation, is maintaining the simulation, and everything's being live streamed right now, and at some point we'll end the simulation. But there's so many ways for the world to move. For me, it's like, what's the win-win situation? I live life in a way where I get to experience my most advanced self. I get to experience my most advanced species. I get to experience the most advanced relationship of my species with the world, the most advanced world. And then, in the simulation, all of this is in the simulation. And then finally, the level 4 of reality, the system admin, where whatever life you've lived, whatever, good, bad, whatever sort of ego code you function through, at some point you're left, and it's like the same way the examiner at the exam hall says, everybody stop writing. It's like you reach that moment in reality where it doesn't really matter how you go further because you've gone far enough, right? And yet this is a reality of human life, right? We got to keep going forth, but at the same time, I think we should use our fascination of being here for the first time in this world to try to comprehend more advanced ways of it happening. And the most fascinating thing is that the human being has an ability to remember something from the past and use that geometry to probabilize what future realities may look like. So I'm saying this ability to translate anything into anything else, it means that in the same way we so simply look at an object, like I'm looking at an object outside of the window of my car and we call it a tree, so easily we all call that a tree, that just means any symbol can be attached to anything else. That's what it means. That means I can connect the idea of a tree to the idea of a sky, a tree that's endless into the sky. Do you know what I mean? You can connect anything to anything else. That's what I'm trying to say, which is another way of saying you can translate anything into anything else if there's a core connection, right? So that's my proof. Now I'm saying if we're in a world, what's Mr.Within simulation hypothesis? Pretty much saying what does it mean when we're in a world where we can translate anything into anything else, and we can just put any symbol and connect it to another symbol. We can just say, all right, that pigment is from now on called the color green. Do you know what I mean? We could all be like, okay, what's that in the sky? It's sun. You know, we could be like, all right, everybody, that's a pineapple. What is this? We're just abstract linking, we're connecting one abstract idea to one abstract position to another real position that's being received in an abstract way. So I'm saying, like, yo, man, we're all like acting right now as a species, and we need that awareness to realize the honor of the greatness of our species. Do you know what I mean? Like, you right now might not have an ability to imagine people who are lesser than you, but I want to tell you, try to imagine people who are greater than you. Try to imagine all the children who will be born after you have left this world, right, who in some sense would go on doing incredible genius things. It fascinates me. It grounds me that, all right, man, you're here now in some part of history of human species. You've awakened. What can you do before you leave? And how can you do it being conscious that civilizational intelligence at its most advanced state is a recognition that it is not the most advanced, which means an awareness of the most advanced. But if it is aligned with the mercy of the most advanced, it means that we, like, theologically speaking, God the greatest created the greatest invention, creation, and it taught its creation all the divine names, all the sacred names, and everything in creation bowed except one who in some sense wasn't in some sense bowing to man, didn't even care about man, was doing it as an act of rebellion against the higher power, and mankind was caught in the crossfire, you know. But in some sense, we are a great invention, great design of a great designer. Okay, and now the whole point of it is, like theologically speaking, this is my view. What was Adam and Eve's mistake? Their mistake was that they had rules from an original creator, yet they listened to a simulated entity. They listened to a being that simulated itself. So Adam and Eve made the mistake of forgetting the original and trusting the simulated, and now we're all in the simulated world. Okay, but the point of it is, we will all have that original genius design of our genius creator. Anyways, I wanted to thank whoever is listening and has listened so far. The point of this episode was to say I had a whoa, we can translate anything to anything else, and now what does this truly mean? What does this mean about the nature of the inner realms? What does this mean about the nature of order? What does this mean about the nature of human creativity? What does this mean about the nature of the ethics of a species as it is going forward in time? What will happen when suddenly the species properly grieves for its mistakes? It means a species wakes up and there's going to be like generations of human beings who are going to in some sense break down, not physically, but in the sense of there's going to be emotional waves of a species. So a species will notice its own immaturity, and at some point what's going to happen, God willing, is humanity cares for its original greatness. The true excellence of our species. Thank you for listening. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. A'udhu billah shaitan ar-Rajim. May God protect us from the cursed one and unnecessary ignorance. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Rabbi Gfirli, my Lord, forgive me. My Lord, forgive my species for all the sins that we're conscious and unconscious of. Ihdina sirata mustaqim. May God guide us to the direct path. May the most advanced guide us in the most advanced way. May the greatness of every soul be witnessed in the world room before they leave it. Rise, mankind, rise in the sight, in the presence of the one and only. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. For Muslims, this means all praise due to the Lord of the worlds, which means all simulated existence knows it's not the original. And the human species is blessed to have system admin privileges. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. May God bless you.